All right, all right, all right. As Wooderson would say in Dazed and Confused, we are back on Plate and Ponder Empty Nesting with Jen and Chris Fenton. But Jen is still over in Europe. I believe she's in Paris today. She's coming back tomorrow. So, all of you people that have commented about how you're sort of not happy that she's not doing most of the talking anymore, she will be back. And then you'll be able to go back onto the pod and feel good that only the plus one me is limited to 50% of the talking rather than all of it. That said, we are in 40 markets around the world. We want you to download, subscribe, follow, enjoy, and review as long as it's good. Today, which is a fantastic day for me, I am reconnecting with one of my groomsmen from my wedding 21 years ago. Jen's wedding, too. She was there. His name is Greg Cohen. And he's joining us from South Florida, relatively close to where Billy McIlvaine did the other day. Greg is probably one of my longest time friends of all time. I think it goes all the way back to when we played on the Bumblebee Palm Beach Gardens rec team when we were like 3 or 4 years old. We went to preschool together, all that kind of stuff, and we have stayed in touch ever since. So, Greg, welcome to Plate and Ponder.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, we're pumped up to have you. You are arguably one of the most animated individuals I've ever come across in my life, which says a lot because I'm out here in Hollywood. But what was the most interesting thing that happened recently in terms of any sort of national championship game that's occurred?
That's yeah, I'm having a really good year. We started out
Who's
Miami
we?
was
There you
we
go.
being me and my Miami alumni. So we were all pumped, expecting to win, and unfortunately on that Monday night we were down there and we lost.
Were
Uh,
you one of the guys that paid like $3 million to go to that game?
no, 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 no. Season ticket holders, they were good to us. They offered lower rates, but it was very funny. Before it kicked in, I was talking to Gabrielle, the young one. She's the 16-year-old, I think. Yeah, 16. And I had said, I don't think we're going to go to this game because these ticket prices are so high. And even if you were going to pay a little more, I wouldn't be able to sit with my buds, or we'd even be sitting, as high as the top bleachers, and just wasn't going to go. And then Miami came through. Season ticket holders got some benefits, so we made it in.
So for your kids, which you're supposed to prioritize first, they did not get to go to the game, but you did. Is that what you're saying?
They did not, and I don't think growing when they were growing up, they always liked the Hurricanes. But now I've got Samantha out west at USC. She doesn't really care as much for the Hurricanes as she does the Trojans. And the big convert was Lucas. Lucas is now a sophomore in Gainesville, and just really not that much interest. I think he may have gone out of pity for me, but not that interested
That's
anymore.
interesting. So you got a true house divided right now, and although USC's not really in that mix, but as a professor at USC, I do wish they were a little better at football. Although we did have a an alum win a Super Bowl as a quarterback. That was nice.
Yeah, yeah, I was following him. I think pretty much most people wanted the Seahawks at this point because they're still, still have memories of Brady and usually beat most people's teams. So I was
Well,
pulling for Darnold too.
let me ask you this: like, as a what Jen and I started as a hobby here was to talk about empty nesting, and you're essentially 2/3 of the way there. Like, how has that, I guess, 67% empty nesting been for you?
I mean, it's pretty interesting actually. I mean, I think we're there already. I mean, the 16-year-old, just playing soccer, she's doing all the activities, friends, boyfriend. So she's pretty much out of the house a lot. I think it really kind of, I kind of suffer on the weekends because I was so used to waking up early, doing the workout routine, and then just go time. I'd have 3 kids playing soccer, doing other activities, and I loved it. I loved that schedule where I didn't know where I was going, what city I was going to, and we'd hang, watch the kids play, hang with them, and then get home at time to watch the football game, hopefully at night. But now that's gone. I got a lot more free time.
Dude, I remember you and I were a part of that as kids, like whether it was Little League or Palm Beach Garden soccer was really the one that we always talk about, and we always give shout outs to all those leading scorers from back in the day. I know, Greg, you were a bit of a ball hog, so you definitely scored the ball more than me. I was a little more of setting it up for people like you to go finish it
Well,
off.
no, I agree. I mean, I was 12 years old. It was very important that the scouts at the game could see that I could score in our 12 on 12 or even 11 on 11, whatever the size of the field was at that point.
Yeah, although no matter how well you did, it was always like Chris Whitley was 55 goals ahead for the season, and then I think Joe DeBiddle was like 20 behind him, and then the rest of the pack, and you usually were leading that rest of the pack.
Yes, yes. Thank you. It was good to be the leader of the rest of the pack. But and it was funny because when the kids started playing, I actually reached out to Whitley and made a joke that, hey, one of my kids scored like 3 goals in the game, which is probably like 1/3 of what you would have done in the same game. So, but it's funny. You remember Whitley and yeah, Joe DeBiddle. I haven't seen. Yeah, that's well, he was Gardens High School, I think. So I
I
wouldn't
think he
keep
was
in touch with
Gardens,
him.
and then I mean, this is gonna. I think he went to Cardinal Newman, actually. I believe after that. Why I know that I don't know. But I think I remember all of our soccer buds. We were trying to get them all to go to the Benjamin School, and I don't. I think we came up a little short on that, but we would have dominated back then if they did.
Yeah, I know.
So where did your kids go to high school down there? You didn't. None of them followed your footsteps at Benjamin, right?
No, no, I went we went a different path. I mean, Benjamin was it's obviously thriving and doing well, but we just felt with the kids and what they're doing, there's some other places that worked out best. The oldest went to a school called Dreyfus, like an art school. And arts are not just music and singing, journalism, theater, visual arts. So Samantha was a journalist primarily. I hope I got that right, but she's long been withdrawn. But so she went there and that was sort of the segue to get into USC. And the other two were at a school called Dwyer, where I don't think Dwyer started till after we graduated high school, but just a strong program. They've got some really good things for the kids, and they've got some athletics as well. But their football used to be incredible, but it's not quite as good. But the sports programs are pretty solid, so it just worked out better.
Well, tell me about. So it is interesting because you talked about how Dwyer didn't even exist. I mean, I was talking to Billy Mack whenever that was Friday, about Benjamin School because like when you and I and he and all of our buddies started that school, North Palm Beach private school. It was I think we did preschool and kindergarten and then through that grammar school. And at the time when we first started there, it didn't even go through high school. And then eventually it got through high school. And I think there were 48 kids or something in our senior class. And now it's like I think double that. But that's sort of the way a lot of the school system is down there on the public side too, because I mean the population has like boomed since we were kids down there, right?
Right, right. But you do have a lot more of the high schools. The public schools have gotten bigger. They all have these different types of programs. If you want your kid to try to join into anyone, whether it's again, there's an IB program and or baccalaureate. I think that's the what the acronym stands for. So you've got a lot more children, but you also have a lot more opportunity. Because back then, like you and I would go to the fields and 95% of the kids were Jupiter, Gardens, or Benjamin. And now you've got not a lot more of the school, different schools and expansion of programs.
So, and then like, what has that done? Because you are one of the prominent real estate attorneys in town, right? You run your own firm. It's I think down there it's a little different. California, you close on a real estate transaction. You have an escrow company that sort of manages everything. You don't ever really hire an attorney to do the real estate transactions here. The agents essentially oversee all the escrow stuff going on. But that's different in Florida, right?
Well, there are some similarities. I mean, the question is who's allowed to do what. With being an attorney, we're allowed to practice law. That's defined a certain way. As real estate agents, there's approved forms by the state where things can be filled in. So, again, it's more, we work more as a team with the real estate agents because if, again, there's some things that they can accomplish. Sometimes there's issues and we just kind of try to work together to figure out all the details, but we don't really run with it necessarily. We could, but that's not always the best thing. You need to kind of figure out where everybody is in the process. So it sounds a little bit similar to California. I'd be curious how your real estate market is there, because every other day I'm hearing from real estate agents down here that we're going to have this influx of people from California, influx of people. There was the guy who was elected for mayor of New York. They're all coming. So I'm not sure if that's taken off quite so much, but I don't know
Yeah, I
how.
think. I mean, I think the situation out here is that taxes are extremely high. I mean, I think the top bracket on a state tax is something like 13. I think it's 13.4%, something like that. So that's on top of your federal, which is insane. And then on top of it, we have crazy taxes on everything. I mean, in fact, I was driving by. I think oil prices are still in that like $60 a barrel range, but we're still at over $5 a gallon just to fill up your car. So that's insane in terms of, like, I do a lot of business in Nashville and upstate New York and various other places, and gas is like below $3 a gallon. So we're paying pretty much double the standard. I don't know what it costs in your neck of the woods, but taxes are crazy. So people are leaving. I think I haven't heard a lot of people making the move to Florida other than a handful of like Miami's, but for the most part, it's like Texas, Nevada, various other places that aren't quite as far east. Nashville actually picked up a lot of people, that area, Tennessee. But yeah, Florida is not one. I think that's more of a Northeast thing in particular, what the news is saying about New York City.
Right. Well, we definitely had the first wave, and I'm not, again, practicing, and you use the word prominent, which is a very funny term. I don't know about that, but like practicing all the time, watching what happens and just kind of gathering information from people. I think we had the huge initial New York movement, obviously, when COVID kicked in. We were a little bit more, or a lot more, however anybody looks at it, outside and things like that. So you had a lot of the movement then, which helped increase our prices. And now we're back to like more of a normal thing where people are still, obviously moving, but it's not this rush or wave. Although, I don't know what changes it. I don't know if a snowstorm changes it. It doesn't seem like that's the case. You don't just decide after living in New York for 15, 20 years that, there's a snowstorm, I got to get out of here. Plus you've got your state income tax there if you've got your business there. But we're always going to have the New York people coming down, the northeastern people. California, we will get people. And I'm still fascinated because the question to me is taxes versus your weather out there is pretty incredible. I don't know if it's quite worth that state income tax rate or the gas rate, but it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, except today it's been like an absolute like thunderstorm craziness. Like, if you can see behind me here that it's gray skies. It's not, it's raining right now, but not like it was before. I think some of my chairs tried to fly off our balcony out here. So we're going through one of those crazy winter storms, but we haven't had any in like literally, I think we had 2 months of 75 and sunny. In fact, I think I surfed 3 days in a row before today. So the water's still warm, and yeah, you can't beat the weather out here. What about on the real estate sort of like dynamic? Like, are there one thing about the higher end zip codes in California, and I don't know if it's the same way like as you get inland where it's more of a middle class type of setup, but there's like zero inventory for sale, like nothing. So that's like the thing that's allowing the prices to stay in, I would say, inflated for as long as they have. Is the inventory situation down there getting any different?
Well, I mean, I'm not really reading reports. I'm watching the deals, like how difficult they are, listening to the people, talking with a lot of the local real estate agents. And right now it would seem that there's more of an inventory because people just don't want to pull the trigger on a certain price. Plus, they hear that the interest rates are going to go down. So rather than doing something now, you might think, let me hold off for a couple more months. And I think all those factors just play into it, as opposed to there being a rush or like a mad, you have no time or you're going to lose out, which, again, like going back to, years ago, by the time I was closing a transaction, it was already ready to be sold to another party. But, that was just the mood down here. But I don't think we're obviously not there. And I don't think we're the opposite where properties are going into foreclosure or short sale. But I am starting to see it a little bit. I'm getting, once every week or two, I'm seeing a couple short sales. People don't have enough to pay off their mortgage, things like that. So, but I do think that the inventory is staying there on the market a little bit longer, and people are just not so quick to pull the trigger, because I think the people that really pulled the trigger during COVID, that was, we had extraordinarily wealthy people that came down here and could just do something quick, and they wanted out, so they could do it, and the means, nothing affected them. So I think now we might be into, obviously there's still going to be wealthy people, but not those people that had the unlimited account. Oh, instead of 4 million, I can pay 10 million. Now we're into the people that, like we'll call them the, upper class, obviously, but, some of these people might even be my friends now, as opposed to this fantasy world of these ultra wealthy that, I just, they have great lives, but I just don't interact with them on a regular basis.
So you're saying you're not in the Epstein files? Is that a way of? I mean,
Yes. It's really interesting. I never even heard of the guy. Like a couple of these things down here with, you find out about these like people that do these horrendous things, and you would think, and I'll tell you the big one, not to get off the subject, this Bernie Madoff. You remember the
yeah,
Madoff
of
thing?
course. He was literally the only one that went to jail for the great financial crisis, and he wasn't really even arguably involved with the great financial crisis. He was just periphery. And I always say he's the only reason he went to jail is because the people he ripped off were rich and powerful. That was it. Like, I think the lesson he taught everyone is if you're going to rip off people, just make sure they're not rich and powerful.
Well, when it first came out, you had all of his investors, ultra wealthy people, obviously they didn't know. And then you just started to check around. Did anybody ever meet him? Did you ever know him? And, no, very few people that I interact with, and I interact with a lot, actually had met him on a personal basis. That's why, it's fascinating that he could keep that scheme so silent. And I don't know, did his wife go to jail? I think.
I think I believe his son went to jail. I think I believe his son went to jail because he ran the books. I believe. I don't know. I can't remember the whole thing, but it was, and what's even crazier is I think most of the money has been gotten back by the rich and powerful that he ripped off because they figured out how to get it back. So, you know, once again, it's like just if you're corrupt and immoral and want to break the law, just do it where the victims are powerless to fight back. That's probably the best way to go.
Right.
And I think the Epstein files, I think, is just like a whole other elevation of Madoff. I mean, he's practically a neighbor of yours, but you never came across him.
Right. I mean, neighbor that he lives in the same county as me, but if I look across the street, I'm fairly certain that that house or my house looks nothing like the house across the street or Madoff's house,
That's true.
pre-jail. So
Do you know anybody with the last name Epstein? Because I know quite a few, and I'm wondering what they're going to do about that.
it's, it's funny. I recall some maiden names, so at least they married and got rid of it. So I mean, look, it'll help their marriage because there's no way they're going back. So
That's true. It's almost like getting a tattoo of your wife. You pretty much got to stay in there. Although Jen and I don't need tattoos because we're in it for life. Although we have talked about like in eternity, what are we going to do? Like that's the question. We're still working that one out.
that's good. I mean, you got the podcast, so
Yeah, I mean, actually, it would be good to do one up in heaven. That would be sort of fun. There's a lot of people I'd be interested in talking to up there for sure. So how about with the kids? So back to the empty nesting subject, right? Like now you have Samantha's going to be graduating this year, right? Which is
yes.
insane to me. It's even more insane and slightly offensive that she's never taken my class, which, that was an easy A for her if she just came around and actually did it. But that's all right. I get it. I get it.
I-
But what like would you recommend her coming back to Palm Beach County? Is that a place where you think has a lot of opportunities and is a great place to set up shop? Is that something that you feel like, is one that you would love to really push for? Or you go, God, I don't know about this place. I think there's better spots to go, start a career.
Well, I don't think there's any place better to live than, South Florida, weather, let's focus on like the things that matter, or California for that matter. But it's interesting having watched so much, and just like you, watching sports growing up. I kind of knew a little bit about USC and UCLA, but when you go out there and you spend a little more time, you find out that it's just two different worlds. I mean, here we are. We've got like a huge financial hub here, a lot of investment bankers, Wall Street guys trying to come down. You go out to California, you got the entertainment industry and the marketing industry for talent. So, for me, if she wants to stay in those areas, then I'm all good. And it's probably better, selfishly, obviously I'd like her closer to me, that she stays out there for that economy. And eventually, hopefully there's a reason to come back. But, I think you have to pick what you're trying to do. I mean, I always tell kids, I was talking to some guy the other night, he wants to go to law school. And he's like, well, where do I apply? I said, look, you can get into if you're super smart, like my friend Chris Fenton, you could get into Cornell. But, if you're like Greg Cohen, you're just going to sneak into Miami or Tulane, you do that. But the main thing you do, and I'm not sure how, is you try to stay where you're going to work. Because when
Yeah,
you
I
go to
think
law
that's a good
school,
one. That's a really good point. Although honestly, I don't think anybody went to Cornell to stay in upstate New York. But I could see. I mean, my daughter at Tulane, I could see her like staying down in NOLA. I don't know if she will. I think she does want to come back to Southern California. University of Miami. Well, first of all, I don't know if I could have gotten into Cornell nowadays. I mean, back then it was uh, a lot easier because you didn't have, USC, for instance, has 27% foreign national students there. So you have, if you compare that back to when we were applying to college, USC probably had 5%. So you're literally taking 20, a good 20% chunk, if not more, out of the applicant pool from the US being able to get into these schools. And the Ivies are the same way. Miami, I think, is extremely hard to get into, as is Tulane nowadays. Although I would say the same amount of kids that go to Tulane sort of decide, similar to yourself, I think that Bourbon Street was a good place to hang rather than the library. And I think Kaylee has had a couple, people she knew that ended up going somewhere else. I don't know. So
well,
that's still
that's
remains.
me. Look,
Yeah.
look. I've gone to, it's funny because my kids don't go to private school, and I've only gone to private school. But yeah, I started at Tulane the next year. What I told my parents is that we, being me and Tulane, mutually agreed I should move to Miami. And coincidentally, I got in. That was back during the Gainesville murders. I don't know if you remember that, but they opened admissions in different schools in Florida because people were transferring. So, again, that's why they had that's why I could transfer so late into the year, and that's how I ended up at Miami.
God, that's sort of crazy. Like I didn't even think about that. That was wait, but the murders were up in Gainesville, right? Wasn't
They,
that where they were?
they're up in Gainesville,
And
and
it
that
affected all
was
the schools?
well, what people were taking their kids out of
Yeah.
Gainesville out of concern. So to do that, the Florida schools, some of that, I know Miami because that's where I transferred into. And I like you, I wouldn't have gotten into Tulane or Miami at this stage. I don't know where I would have gone. But for me in that situation, it was that was a coincidence. So
So and now how is the Miami University of Miami undergrad and law school, right? So is the Palm Beach County area full of alums? Do you do a lot of networking with that crew?
no, I really don't. I mean, there's more meetings or get-togethers down south.
Right.
But if you take the size of the schools now, I mean, you've got Florida State, you've got UCF. I mean, that's not. I don't know if UCF has a law school or not. Stetson. The really like this area is pretty saturated with those schools as opposed to the Miami, where a lot of people tend to stay down there.
Now, do you, considering how successful you are today, do you ever think back about whether, like Mr. Guy Hill was responsible for you being here today? Because, as I recall, you were about to be chum for sharks out in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't really appreciate that current going from Sailfish Club to Peanut Island. So, I would tell you, don't take a boogie board, take a surfboard. and make sure you're in shape or you'll just float away.
Yeah, there was just an anecdote in I think we were seventh grade, maybe. We decided all to go to play football on the sandbar at Peanut Island, which is across this channel that you jump off the Sailfish Marina dock with your surfboards, you paddle across this very busy waterway with lots of boats in it, and then you get to the other side, which is this sandbar, and you can go play football or whatever it is. There's a lot of people partying over there. It's great. As a 13-year-old, it was really like just sort of interesting to do the whole thing. Plus, you also knew that if your parents knew you were doing that, they would kill you. But we did it, and I think we were all launching from my house, and I had a bunch of surfboards that are really easy to just paddle across. And all we had left for Greg was this beat up like boogie board. I don't even think you had fins, and the current is really fast, and we all got across it without it carrying us too far. But Greg unfortunately drifted out into the Palm Beach inlet, and then that led him out into the open ocean on a boogie board. It was probably quite terrifying now that I think about it.
It was interesting because you would swim. I would try to paddle or, swim as fast as I could. And if I did that, I stayed idle. I didn't move. And so then when I'd rest, I would just start going. At a certain point, you're just like, yeah, I'm sure somebody's going to, pick me up. And they did.
Yeah,
So,
well, and that inlet actually is known for a good amount of sharks. In fact, I used to fish off the jetty there and would hook sharks every once in a while. So it actually is quite scary. I don't know if Greg really knew what was underneath him as he was paddling. Did you? Did you
no,
even
no.
pick up that?
And I'm not, not a huge fan of sharks, even if people say that they're nice. So I don't know. I think I might have paddled a little harder had I known that.
Well,
No.
what was good, I think didn't a dive boat first see you out in the ocean, and what they do, they signaled.
They threw something over to me. I grabbed onto it, and then they just kind of took me over back to where I started, and then somebody else gave me a ride over.
Oh, that's right.
So
That was Nat Hill's dad. So he was actually at the marina when you arrived by dive boat. I'm sure everybody that chartered that dive boat by the hour enjoyed the fact that they had to pick you up out in the ocean and drive all the way back into the marina, drop you off, and then go back out. I wonder um, if they gave any sort of refunds there or how that worked, or maybe they kept the boogie board as a payment of some sort. But anyway, the good thing is that the 10 of us over at the sandbar, after about an hour of playing, did notice that Greg was missing, and then that was about the time when you showed up, and we showed that we really cared that you were back,
yes,
and then we lived happily ever after, telling that story pretty much every time we're together, which is a lot of fun.
it was. Yeah, it actually was funny in hindsight. But yeah, he saved me. Billy's dad helped me one night. Yeah, the I don't know. Were you there when JW and I like the handcuffs to my tooth? So everybody's parents helped all of us. But which, by the way, you think about that, like all of us growing up had so much interaction because parents, helping us out, doing stuff. And even with like growing up back then, even police, if you happen to see them, it was always like hey, come on, guys, like grow up, don't be, so mischievous, and we'll let you on your way. But it seems that all that stuff has changed a little bit with, cameras, and I don't know if this is a subject.
Well, for the most part, our parents had no idea where we were. I would say, other than when we were sleeping, they didn't really know what we were up to. We sort of had to do it all our own, and I think there was a lot of mischief and craziness. And then on top of it, we had the boating culture, which Billy and I were talking about the other day. I mean, you had 10, 11-year-old kids driving around boats that go 50 miles an hour, and we were kneeboarding, water skiing, you name it, behind them going fishing, sometimes sneaking out into the open ocean on those little things. Like, it was sort of crazy.
Look, even tubing, Little Lake Worth, that just going as fast as you can doing that circle. Yeah, 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 yeah. Like all the, hydroslide in the middle of intracoastal. But yeah, it was but it was definitely different with the parents' involvement. So but because again, back then, I think most of my friends have been in a police car, but were never really arrested. And I don't think that happens nowadays. I think there's too much like volatility and anger, and too many, there's a lot, it seems that a lot more young kids have access to guns. And So you just don't get that life lesson where the police says, like almost like when you're let off a ticket and you feel like you have like a blessing. And the same way when the police are doing it, um, a little different nowadays. So I wouldn't be in school, and I guess I would have been arrested.
Yeah, I do think it is interesting. I mean, as you're talking, I mean, I definitely had some instances where I was in a police car, and I actually there was one time where I actually had to go to a police station, um, and yeah, you think about it, it's sort of like a rite of passage in a way. All of us had that like moment where you realize, whoa, I pushed it too far, and that's like the red line I can't go past again because if I do it again, then it gets really bad. And you wonder whether kids actually have found that red line in whatever way they can nowadays, or whether they haven't. I don't know. I guess TBD. We're hoping we did it right as parents, given what the modern day society is.
Right. And by the way, for your audience, this isn't like we're doing lines of coke or drugs. This is like idiots that one day, go play mailbox baseball, which doesn't really sound that good. But again, it's sort of a mischievous intent, not like an ulterior motive, feel good intent. So just to clarify, if, when the police were there, it was that kind of crime.
Yeah, yeah, yes. These are not like find us in the Epstein files type of situations.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Or in the Bernie Madoff files, for that matter.
Right.
White collar, blue collar. We avoided the real stuff, but it definitely did scare the crap out of us. There's no doubt about that, and it did. I think it shapes you up a little bit and forms you into the adults we are today. That's actually a good sort of like kind of thing to close on, but. I'm curious. Like, I do wonder about your occupation and where you see AI technology changing things, right? Like, is the use of say paralegals or associates is that going to be sort of less common moving forward? Like, do you see AI technology being much more of a tool to really efficiently, mitigate headcount um, or maybe you can say not while I'm here so that all your employees feel great, but like, do you see that just generally being the case in the legal field?
Well, I think it helps with like general ideas, research a little bit. If you're looking for like an idea, you don't having it all to have it just handed to you, you can sort of get general concepts. I mean, look, to me, everything we do, you could have some component of AI that helps you, but there's a reason why we're not all just relying on robots to do things. I mean, you got to understand the people and understand the circumstances, and that's really one thing about practicing law. Like we all can analyze the issue and I could spit it out, but everybody's situation you have to take into account differences, what they're looking for. And so I think there is the human component when it comes to really controlling the client. But on some of the backroom things like doing research or getting things put together to give you an idea, AI can definitely give you something. But every now and then I'll do AI on something that I know, and I can see the answer where it's wrong. And you know, for us, that limits it. We also lose clients who think that AI can do everything they want. And again, it's just a risk that everybody takes, and they've been taking it all along. Like you have pre-printed things, and oh, this is a computer form, I don't have to worry about it. But some people want to save a dollar, and maybe it's right. But if it's not right, then they'll come back and they'll pay more to undo it. So just got to gauge the importance of the legal issue. If what you're getting is what you need, and from a document standpoint for a client, do you feel comfortable relying on something that is just generated from the computer? So again, with clients, we have to address that. And also, like I said, behind the scenes, there is some AI that can speed up the research or preparatory work to give you boundaries.
Well, it does sound like it's sort of a subtle way of saying yes, it is going to make things more efficient. Whether that's with headcount or not, that's hard to say. Maybe it's just more of a tool that amplifies people's ability to get stuff done. I will say that my favorite way of using AI is not going to replace anybody. It's essentially taking old photos and placing Jeffrey Epstein into them. I think it's really fun to do with people that you like. Just go, oh my God, do you remember that? I didn't know he was at that party. It's quite fun. I'll find one of you and I, and I'll make sure Jeffrey was there.
Yes. Thank you.
So I think this was an awesome episode. What I'm going to ask you to do as we head out is give us one last piece of empty nesting advice, if you have some, because you've done it twice and you got one more that's still in the house, but you're getting there to be fully empty nest. So any last advice?
I mean, look, it's different, but you just appreciate things a little more. I mean, my kids will call me more from college because they have actual questions that matter. So, again, it makes you more excited. They're not in the house. But when you get that phone call, it's like, oh, this must, first you're going to check, is everything all right? And then you can actually have some exciting conversations. So just try to make the best. And other than that, I just ruined Randy's day asking her a million questions on what to do. So shoot, I'm surprised she'll go on the next trip with Jen.
There's a reason why Jen's in Europe right now. She's like, I got to get away from him. It's been empty nesting. It's been too much Chris all day long. Anyway, well, I appreciate you being on here. This is the great Maher of real estate attorney transactions in all of Palm Beach County. It's the great Greg Cohen, my longest time friend, probably of 50 years now, which is incredible. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. This is Plate and Ponder, Empty Nesting with Jen and Chris Fenton, although today was with Greg Cohen. And we will be back in all 40 plus countries with another episode coming soon. And I promise Jen will be on that one. So until next time, thanks so much. Keep it real.